Alright, we're coming into 3 more weeks of school. I got chapter 17, pools and fountains, chapter 18, troubleshooting, and then we have our finals for the last week. Alright, pools and fountains, chapter 17, pools and fountains. Objectives. Cite the requirements for receptacles and luminaires placements around pools. Decide various types of underwater luminaires. Identify limitations and clearances for conductors passing overhead. List the code rules for bonding and grounding equipment near a pool. Identify the code requirements for spas and hot tub installations. So again, here's our swimming pool and our boundaries that we have that we got to stay out of. What can we have within certain boundaries? Same thing with grounding and bonding. So where's everything at where we're going to bond these in? GFIs, height clearances, indoors, outdoors. So they're different. So all that will be covered. A safety note. It says water easily causes electrical shorts and faults. Following all the rules for device placements, bonding, and grounding in and around pools. It says special precautions must be taken when installing electrical wiring equipment in the vicinity of water. The code requirements for these types of areas are found in Article 680, swimming pools, fountains, and similar installations. This article is applied for pools, fountains, spas, and hot tubs. If you got one in the bedroom, it would fall under here because it's an electrical motor. If it's electrical. No, it's going to be electrical. Then it says to avoid obvious hazards created by the combination of water, electricity, receptacles, and lighting fixtures near water must be located with safety in mind. If electrical circuit becomes connected to the body of water, and extremely dangerous conditions can occur. The code regulates attempts to minimize the possibility of this situation. So the code is trying to minimize this pool water getting electrified. You always hear of people drowning because it's not the shock that kills you, you drown. What happens is if the pool becomes energized and it paralyzes the muscles, well, now you can't swim. What do? You sink to the bottom. So you always have to be very careful when you're putting electrical stuff around a pool. It says normally receptacles are not allowed within 10 feet of the inside wall of a pool or fountain. However, for permanent installed pools, receptacles used to power the water pump motor required by at least 6 feet from the pool and be GFI protected. Also, there are no minimum distance requirements for receptacles separated from the pool by a wall or other barriers. And see figure 17. So, again, if this wall is closed up, these walls inside the room itself, they're excluded from the code. Not this one. Why? Because this is outside. This one's inside the building. So if there's a wall, and then it's excluded. The fence don't count because the fence has openings where somebody can reach the electrical, and then that could be a problem. Yeah, so it has to be a barrier. The fence is not a barrier. The fence is just something to keep people out. LA, you gotta have a fence around your swimming pools. Why? So nobody drowns. Nobody goes in there and accidentally it causes a problem. It says all receptacles within 20 feet of a pool must be protected by GFI. Permanently installed pools must have at least one 125-volt receptacle within 20 feet for maintenance use. Okay, so here's a 10 foot and then here's a 20 foot. Okay, so outside the 10 foot, it can't be within 10 feet. It can't be within 10 feet, but you have to have one within 12 feet. The only way it can be inside the boundary of 10 feet and 6 feet is if you have a pool pump. So you have a pool pump that's close to the pool. It's like a friend of mine has one and it's about a little bit more than 6 feet outside the pool. Okay, it's up on the planter, up on top. Well, guess what? That's where the fence is at, and that's where the circulating pump's at. Okay, it's 120 volts, single receptacle. 120 volts, single receptacle. It can't be a duplex, so if you're using a receptacle, cord and plug connected, it has to be a single receptacle. Okay, so if you're running a 20 amp circuit across, number 12 is on a 20 amp breaker, you can't use a single receptacle 15 amps. You have to use a 20 amp. Okay, because your circuit is sized at 20 amps. If you pull number 12s, put it on a 15, technically yes, you can put a 15 amp receptacle. Okay, but because you have a 12 gauge, that breaker trips. They come back, well, the breaker's too small. Let's put a 20 amp. Well, now you violated the code because you're receptacle. So it's one of the safety cautions that you should take when you wire this stuff in. Okay, I can use a duplex 15 amp on a 20 amp breaker, 12 gauge wire, 20 amp breaker. But if I'm using a single, it has to be rated for whatever the circuit is. So if you're pulling number 12s across, guess what? You're going to put a 15 in with a 15 amp breaker? Okay, fine. No problem. Put 14s across. Now that way they can't upsize the breaker. So if you can have an option to upsize the breaker, then you might as well look at your receptacle. Think about what type of receptacle you want to use. Again, you can't have any receptacles within 10 feet. You can have one if it's feeding the pump and it's 6 feet outside the pool. 10 feet up to 20 feet, whatever you want. Okay. You have to have one within 20 feet. So here's my 10-foot barrier. That's why it's red. No. But I have to have one between 10 and 20 for maintenance. So that way when they come and do any maintenance on it, they can plug whatever they have. You know, you always run into this having equipment outside. You have to have a receptacle close to the equipment. Why? For it has to be within 25 feet. So that way if they're servicing that piece of equipment, they can plug in whatever they have without having to disconnect what they're working on. You know, say they're trying to test run, but they're trying to use something. It's like same thing with a unit in the attic. You have to have an outlet, a service outlet. Besides the power for that unit, you have to have a service outlet, so in case you need power to plug into, without having to unplug the appliance. And it might have a switch or whatever to turn it off, but you have to have a separate outlet so they can work on it. I usually put a 20 amp. I have a gas furnace, so I have a 2-gang box. I have a switch with a switch receptacle and a duplex right next to it. Okay, so I have a circuit coming in for my furnace to up to 20 amps gas, and I feed the switch. Off the switch it goes to the receptacle, so when you turn the switch on, it turns the receptacle on. That switch receptacle is a 20 amp switched receptacle. Okay, and then right next to it is a duplex that I just picked up a circuit off of the general lighting in the house and ran it across for that duplex receptacle, so it has nothing to do. So if he turns the breaker off, he's working, he walks out, they turn the breaker off, put a lockout, tag it out. Guess what? The receptacle right next to it's still hot in case you got to plug in lights, whatever they're using. They might need power, so they can plug in. That way they don't have to, you don't have to go out and look for a cord out in the hallway somewhere. Same thing if it's outside or on the roof. All right. So it says no receptacles within 10 feet of the pool. See exceptions in the text. All receptacles within 20 feet protected by a GFI. So receptacles aren't allowed within 10 feet if they're separated by a wall or a barrier. Again, the barrier has to be something that can stop you from getting to it. It has to be a barrier. A fence, wrought iron fence that has a 6-inch gap, you know, it's not a barrier. So if you have an outlet right outside that fence, guess what? It's not stopping you. And if it's within 10 feet, then it's a no-no. If it's outside 10 feet, then it's okay. If it's outside 10 feet, it's okay. But if it's within 10 feet and it's just a regular GFI duplex receptacle to plug in, you know, your radio, your whatever else, you know, if it's within 10 feet, then it's a no-no. Luminaires. There are two basic groupings of lights used in around pools. There are lights in the air. Okay, so the luminaires, before we get this, luminaires, there's two groupings. Okay, so it's around or above or in the pool. So those are your two groups, around and above, or in the pool itself. There are lights in the area around the pool, and there are lights in the pool. Requirements for these lights vary by locations. Okay, pool area lighting. So above and within 5 feet. Okay, if you're within 5 feet, it's going to be inside the pool. If you're within 5 feet, it's going to be within the pool. Or a lot of times you have less and you got a pole. Okay, well, if you have a pole with a light, 12 feet above the maximum water level. So it's not from the ground level, it's from the water level up. So if you buy a 12-foot pole, you go up and you put a light up there, you're fine. But you got to remember is that arm comes out and it bends, it's where that light's at, to the water. You know, if you put a light up, or if it's a pole light with a, you know, with a light on top of a pole, and then you're okay. As long as you got a 12-foot pole, and then you don't have to worry about that extra 8 inches, extra foot, or whatever that you have to worry about. Is order an 11-foot pole, you put it up, inspector comes off, and you're an inch too short. And I've seen inspectors when they come up and they're measuring where things are at, trying to find water levels for boxes out of the ground, you know, so where they're above the water level. Certain areas have maximum that you have to have these outlets at. It says the code allows luminaires to be installed directly above and within 5 feet horizontally from the inside wall of a pool, as long as the luminaire is at least 10 feet above the maximum water level. That's outdoor pools. Indoor pools can drop down to 7'6" if two conditions are met. The luminaires must be on a circuit protected by GFI, and the luminaires must be totally enclosed. So this part here, the existing light fixtures and outlets above maximum water level of 5 feet. GFI protected at 5 to 10 feet from the pool. Section NEC 68020. So again, once you go inside indoors, so they're around the pool, above the pool 5 feet, within 5 feet. Guess what? If you go out 10 feet, let's say you got a patio deck, or you have a deck around your pool, and that deck around the pool is 10 feet. Why? So you make sure there's no receptacles within 10 feet. So now you're outside the 10 foot. And you got lights out there, and you don't have to worry about this 12 foot. Okay, this 12 foot only goes if you're within 5 feet. If you're within 5 feet. Once you get outside that 5 foot mark, poles doesn't matter. Unless it's just cord and plug connected, and then completely different. Okay, we'll get into that in a bit. But if they're fixed light fixtures, once you get outside 5 foot, height does not matter. If you're putting them outside, obviously they have to be designed to be outdoors. Okay, existing light fixtures and outlets are allowed to be within 5 feet of the pool if they are 5 feet above the maximum water level, rigidly attached to an existing structure and protected by a GFI. Okay, so this part down here. So you have a house, and you're putting your pool in, and you get within 5 feet. You have to be above the water level. That light has to be above the water level. You have a receptacle on the wall, it has to be above 5 feet above the water level. If you're within that, guess what? Put a blanket cover over the receptacle. The best thing to do, just cap it off. If you can. Light fixtures, make sure it's 5 feet above the water level, and that it's GFI protected. So you just put a GFI breaker on that one circuit. More or less, if it's already arc fault. If it's not arc fault, put an arc fault GFI, and then you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Luminaires installed in an area located 5 feet, 10 feet horizontally from the inside wall of the pool must be GFI protected unless they meet the following requirements. Get back. Say at least 5 feet above the maximum water level of the pool, firmly attached to the structure. That was the fixture, the building. Let me go back. Oops, wrong way. You got this building. Here's the 10-foot marks. Obviously, it's within 10 feet. And let's say you already have an existing light here. Okay, well, we're outside 5 feet. We're outside 5 feet, so we're okay. But if there's a receptacle there, I would take it off and have it moved somewhere else. And move it outside the boundary. But if there's a light here in this building, if there was a light here, then we're okay. It looks like it's more than 5 feet outside that wall. If it was closer, where it was within 5 feet, and then obviously it has to be 5 feet above the water level, has to be enclosed, and it has to be GFI protected. Cord and plug devices such as table lamps can be used in areas less than 20 feet from the inside wall of the pool. If they are rated at 15 amps or 20 amps, protected by a GFI for permanently installed pools, the flexible cord must be 3 feet long or shorter and must include an equipment ground conductor. Okay, so that means if you're going to have cord and plug devices close to your pool, it has to be a 3-prong. It can't be a 2-prong. Last thing you want, guess what? You got it plugged into a GFI. That GFI is not going to trip. If you get a radio, you drop it in the pool, and that water becomes electrified, or you get a table lamp and you drop it in the pool, the light bulb blows up, and all of a sudden it energizes that water, that plugged into your GFI, it's not going to do anything. Why? Because it's only on a 2-wire. So, if I'm in the pool and I'm adding, let's say 2 amps, or 1 amp, let's just go something simple, 1 amp. Okay? How many milliamps is that? 1 amp's 1,000 milliamps. We read earlier in the book, in the safety, that above 50 milliamps, death is possible. You get above 500 milliamps, death is likely. Okay, well, this is not shocking you where you're shocked, but what happens is it paralyzes your muscles. And then you just sink to the bottom. You get hit by 6 milliamps. Let's just talk about, let's take it back a little bit. You got 6 milliamps, or 7 milliamps, which is 0.007 amps. Not enough to kill you, but it says that it can create, get your muscles to contract, or where they stuck, and then all of a sudden you can't move, so it paralyzes you because you can't move. Your muscles are, so what do? You sink to the bottom, you drown. The electricity is not enough to kill you, but you die from drowning. Okay, but why does the GFI trip? Well, GFI is supposed to trip at 6 milliamps. And well, guess what? If I got 7 milliamps, or 10 milliamps, or 15 milliamps, or 20 milliamps, it's not enough to kill you. It can paralyze your muscles. Not enough to kill you, but the GFI will not trip. Why? Because if I got 10 milliamps on the hot, I got 10 milliamps on the neutral. Because whatever's coming on that hot is going back on the neutral, going back to the GFI. GFI says, hey, I got 10 milliamps, I got 10 milliamps. My circuit is balanced, stay on. Okay? Meantime, you drown. So that's why when you have a device you have to have devices, it has to be a 3-prong. Why? Because now some of that hot would go on the neutral, and some of that hot would go on the ground. So now we would notice that there's an imbalance between your hot and your grounded wire, and there's an imbalance between your hot and your grounded wire, and then GFI trips. Must be including equipment ground conductor 12 gauge or larger, and grounded type attached plugs. So anytime you're doing anything and you're putting stuff in, guess what? That ground, that number 12 ground, is a very important thing. Because that is our smallest ground that we can use on pools. Even though we're pulling 14 gauge or a receptacle or lights or whatever, because it's on a 15 amp breaker, guess what? Our ground's going to be at least 12. And it goes on further in a bit, and I'll cover that. Further guidance regarding the installation of luminaires and receptacles above and around swimming pools is found in section 680.22 of the code. Okay, and that was .680.22. Okay, so pool areas. So here's a 6-foot bumper that they're saying, so it's 5 feet. So it says new luminaires within 12 feet vertically of the pool surface. So if you're in this red area here, guess what? They got to be 12 feet high. Luminaires must be protected by GFI unless at least 5 feet above water surface and rigidly attached to a structure. Okay, so if you're in a building, you're above 5 feet, and you're outside a boundary, out here, outside this boundary, then they don't have to be GFI. If you're within this boundary, it has to be GFI protected. Cord-connected fixtures within 16 feet must be rated for 20 amps or less. Excuse me. Underwater lights. Lighting, when permanently installed in swim pools, can be attached and safe if correctly installed. These same luminaires can be deadly if not properly installed. For this reason, the code requirements of 680.22 and 680.23 must be fully understood and strictly followed. There are several general requirements. Luminaires must be installed at least 18 inches below the water level of the pool. So it must be 18 inches below the water level of the pool. They're usually right at the water level, and I'll get into that a little bit. Circuits not over 150 volts. Luminaires must be designed and installed so that there is no possibility of a shock hazard. Even without GFI protection, however, all luminaires that operate at more than 15 volts must have GFI protection. Luminaires used for underwater lighting must be of an approved type and listed for Underwriters Laboratory or other recognized laboratory. It says luminaires listed and identified for use in minimal depth 4 inches are permitted. Luminaires shall be installed at least in less than 4 inches of depth. Wet niche luminaire. So the two types of water level are wet niche luminaire and dry niche luminaire. Wet niche luminaires are installed in metallic housing and inside of a pool wall submerged in the water. These fixtures can be lifted out and formed of the shell and the servicing formula. So here's a wet niche luminaire. This is a dry niche. So I got a wet niche luminaire. So within this wet niche luminaire, I got my conduit that comes in and goes to the light. Okay, again, it's got to be within 18 inches. 18 inches underneath the water. Within this, we have to pull a bonding. One, we have to bring a bonding wire across, and I'll get back into the bonding in a little bit. This whole area, guess what? This gets filled up with water. In a dry niche, this area stays dry. In a wet niche, it's called wet niche because water comes in here. The couple times that I did do pools in the apartments that I've wired, and a couple of houses that I did in, we use brass pipe. Inside this housing, it has a hub so you can bring your pipe in. So it was all cut and thread, brass. So we pulled in our ground wires, and then within that area, we brought in a wire. Get in here real quick. It says shell is equipped with a threaded port 4 conduit, which can be rigid metal, IMC, liquid type flex, non-metallic, or PVC. This is metallic conduits must be brass or other corrosion resistant material. Okay, the forming shell has a lug for grounding and bonding the equipment ground conductor and bonding jumper to the ground grid attached to the lug. So we would pull a wire in. Inside here it went to a J-box. So we had a J-box, 10 feet outside the pool area, 12 feet above the water level, and then that's where our J-box for this light was. And this light comes with a cord, so we will order cords with a 20-foot cord, a 25-foot cord, whatever we needed, and we pull the light in. And then what we do is take the fish tape in, have a string in there, whatever we had, pull that cord through. Within that cord, we also pulled the ground wire, the grounding wire. So here's the one coming here. See this part right here coming to the light? That is a cord that's designed to be in the water, waterproof cord. There's already with this light. So that way you don't have to take anything apart. You don't have to take this joint apart. And then we would leave about 3 to 4 feet of cable inside the light fixture. So in case you have to change the light bulb out, go in there, take the light bulb out, be long enough to get up on the deck. So the cord, we'll leave it curled up in here so we can get this cord up, get the light up to the top in case we ever have to change the light bulb out. Okay, dry niche is a little bit different. Okay, and then, but we would have a wire coming in here, and then we would also have another grounding wire that was run separately. We come across with a pipe we bring in, and then we had a ground wire that went in and we tied in any metal parts that were being tied into the pool. We had a ground clamp on the frame, on the rebar. Any rebar that was there was grounded off to this wire here. It's a bonding jumper. We had a bonding jumper going to all. We had a ladder, so the little mounts that went into the concrete, we had grounds on that. The pool for the diving board, whatever, anything metal that was going in to the concrete, we put a bonding jumper in. Okay. It says when non-metallic conduit is used, a solid or stranded number 8 American wire gauge insulated conductor must be run with circuit conductors and attached to the inside of the grounding lug. Illustrated in the requirements for a wet niche luminaire. The code discusses wet niche luminaires in 68023B. Okay, so within this conduit, if you're using plastic, you got to have a number 8 going there. Okay. We used to use 12 gauge because we use brass, and we brought brass from the source. When we come into whatever box we're doing, we put a grounding bushing. We ran brass up, put a grounding bushing, and bonded that conduit, and then we ran number 12s. Okay, so we had number 12 coming in, and then we would run in. Well, we had number 8 going up to our boxes. Instead of having 2 conduits, we had one off. Off that one conduit, we bring over the number 6 code. Not the local codes wanted a number 6 bonding jumper, so we put a number 6 bonding jumper on everything. And we just ran number 6 to everything and bonded as much as we can. Yeah. Inspector come by. Some inspectors, oh, why is that choose number 12? Shouldn't be number 6 or number 8 or whatever it was. Okay, fine. Yeah, but they were requiring number 6 on the pool stuff on the bonding jumper. The local jurisdiction was. That code says number 8. Dry niche luminaires are installed close to the recessed deck. So dry niche luminaire, dry niche, according to section 682, a dry niche luminaire is intended for installation in the wall or floor of the pool area or fountain, in a wet niche, in a niche that is sealed against entry of pool water. So here's our connection, and here's our bond. A lot of times some of these will have a transformer, they're low voltage, so you have a low voltage light bulb. Your power comes in, all your connections are done up here, above the water. Okay, here, this is exposed to the water. This is exposed to the water. This is sealed off from the water. Again, got to be 18 inches up. At the lowest point, you have to have a drain. So if water gets inside this area, it drains out. The deck box for the dry niche is not required to be elevated 4 inches or set back 4 feet from the pool edge. In fact, many styles of dry niche fixtures have integral flush deck box to permit easier maintenance. So again, this doesn't have to be, because once you put the cover on, it seals off. When you have this, is you got to be out 4 feet where these connections are. Then you have to be above the water level. So you have to be outside, and then we have to be, I think it's 18 inches above the water level. So in case the water did come up, the water wouldn't get up into the connections. This is just local jurisdiction. Here's 12. The deck box can be fed using rigid metal conduit, IMC, non-metallic rigid metal Non-metallic rigid conduit EMT is permitted for indoor use only. Last thing you want to do is put EMT out here, because the chlorine will eat up that EMT quick. And it says a recession that houses the dry niche luminaire must have a drain at its lowest point. This allows any water to leak into the drain out, preventing damage to the luminaire. Shows the requirements, figure 17.4, which is that one right here, shows the requirements for a dry niche luminaire. Okay, so this is within, when you're bringing in, again, it's got to be a GFI. When you put stuff around the pool, you can't be GFI is one of the biggest safeties that you can have to help protect somebody from getting shocked. And there is the code alert for the dry niche. The wet niche was 680 23B. Underwild, I'm going in the wrong direction. Deck boxes installed where they do not create a tripping hazard, elevated at least 4 inches, located 4 feet from a pool edge, corrosion resistance. Okay, so a deck box. Okay, so this is going to a box. If the box is above, if it's going to be a tripping hazard, see, and where I came from, where I learned, where I've done the pools that I've done, we did have deck boxes. We had boxes, or connection boxes to these. We put them outside. We installed our boxes outside the deck area. So we went wherever the deck was going to be. They said, okay, fine, we're going to have a 10-foot deck. We went outside the 10-foot, and that's where we put the box to feed this luminaire. And then we just pulled the cable to where we're going, because we had to be 18 inches above. They didn't want them in the deck. Why? Because water level can come up. We had a similar problem one of the areas where I worked, and when the pool people with the swim teams and the water polo teams and the diving teams or whatever was there, when they would go to practice to create a waveless form, what happens is when the water level's here and you got this barrier here and there's movement, well, it creates waves. So what they would do is they would fill the water level all the way to the top. So once they created the water level to the top, now the deck box is at the same level. What happens to the water? It goes up to the deck box. So let's say here, they bring the water all the way up. Say this is a wet niche luminaire. So they bring the water up. Guess what? Now this can get filled up. What happens to your joints? So now those joints, those waters, those connections can be within. They can be within that water level, and now let some of the voltage up. Okay, so you have. That's why they required us to put the boxes so high out of the ground, so the water level did not come up and fill this gap where now it's within the water. So that is one of the very important things that some areas do. Okay, remember the code. This is a minimal. The code allows these deck boxes. So they install where they do not create a tripping hazard. Elevated at least 4 inches above. So, okay, now you got just got to go 4 inches above the grade level. Okay, well, if the water goes all the way to the top, what happens? Now water can get back up to, so it can be a dangerous situation. So that's why they also located 4 feet from the pool edge, corrosion resistant material. So again, the material you use, deck boxes must have constructed of corrosion material. The flash deck box can be used for lighting operations at 15 volts or less, if it is sealed and potted. Other provisions and requirements concern the installation of deck boxes, as well as boxes used to house GFIs, transformers, GFCIs, and transformers around pools are found in section 680.24. Also, further specs information suggestions should be obtained from the utility company and the local inspection authority. So, if you're ever doing a pool or working with a pool, the best thing to do is talk to the authority having jurisdiction for your area to find out what are their requirements, what do they like to see. Because I've worked with areas where one person reads it one way, another person reads it the other. So you never know who you're going to get, so it's best to find out what is their interpretation of the code and what is it what they're looking for. So because we had different various people that would come around and people saw it one way, so what we do is we just went over the board with everything. Okay, so the idea is to create, I always thought about safety, getting electrocuted. So one of the things they had, okay, local jurisdiction, that wasn't 18 inches, it was 12 inches. So our boxes, whatever box we put in, had to be 12 inches above the water level. It had to be 12 inches above the water level. So the water came up, it wouldn't get up to that box. Okay, so here's my box with my connection. Here's the water level. I'm 12 inches above. So the water level never went up, or people splashing. Guess what? The water level moves that pipe. Again. People start splashing. It's a pressure, it's a vacuum. So the water goes up, comes back down. Goes back up, goes back down. So if we have this high enough, we don't have to worry about that water getting to those connections. Okay, we used to seal all our connections. We just didn't use wire nuts. We had these little baggies. You mix them up, put it on the wire nut, put it over the wire nut, and it would seal up. There's another one you put tape and just put stuff. It comes with a little brush, and we seal the wire nuts. So the wire nuts had to be sealed so water did not get into them. That was before the silicone-filled wire nuts. So we had to seal our connections up. I'll leave it here with the luminaires in this deck box. I'll get into overhead conductors tomorrow. There's an assignment coming alongside with this. This is today's assignment. If you haven't done your test and your PDF, please get it in. Okay? Y'all have a good one. Stay safe, and I hope y'all had a good Memorial Day weekend done. All right?